Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November 13th, 2018 Conservation Commission meeting in the town of Milton. We have a couple of issues of protocol. One is that this is an open meeting. We have a tape recorder going, so we invite everyone to speak, ask questions, make comments, but we'd also ask you to come forward and use a microphone so that we can record your comments. Second matter of formality, we introduce ourselves.
Judith Darrell Kemp.
My name is John Kiernan.
Hans Van Lingen.
Ingrid Beatty.
And Steve Ibis, Conservation Agent.
First on the agenda is an informational item, and that is from the Ocean River Institute. Is there anyone here from Ocean River? Seeing none, we'll go to item number 2, which is notice of intent, 76 Cliff Road.
Good evening, Martha. Very well, thanks. And you? Glad to see you can make it.
Hi, I'm Bridget Gaffney. I'm the property owner at 76 Cliff Road.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
I read your memorandum. Can you, but for the public's benefit, can you tell us what you've done and the data that you've assembled?
Sure. Quick recap. We're probably a small project from your perspective, but for ours it's pretty big. We're looking to put in a small pool and surrounding patio in our backyard. And we are in the resource buffer zone. And part of our, there were a few issues that we had wanted, you'd wanted additional information for last time we talked. So one was the engineering drawings, and we had those updated to more clearly delineate the buffer zone, to also indicate where the erosion mitigation would be located, and the driveway would be used as the construction entrance.
Can I ask you a question about the engineering plan? Because I'm reading your recap here.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the first page, under item number 2, it's the last item on the page, it's talking about, we were talking about the retaining wall, whether it's necessary or not. And it says here that the retaining wall, as there is over 15 feet between the edge of the pool and the beginning of the slope. All right, so I went back and I looked at that. And then it says, if you keep going, it says Cherry Hill Pool Installation recommends retaining wall for a pool with a depth we are considering, which is 6 feet, only if there's less than 8 feet of space between the pool edge and the beginning of the slope. So you've got 15, but what I'm trying to figure out is on the engineering plan, the line to the left, the solid black line, is a property line. And is that, where does the slope begin? Everything that I read makes sense. The 15 feet sounds like it's plenty of space.
Right, so the slope, I believe, is indicated by this wavy line. That's been my understanding of it.
Okay.
So it kind of curves around there.
It does.
And that's where, if you remember from the site visit, it kind of has a little, sort of kicks out a little bit there. It kind of follows that same contour.
All right. Does that make sense to you, Hans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was just trying to figure out where the slope is, and that's not, it's not defined here, but I understand what you just said. Okay.
Okay. Also, one thing that we had not included earlier were the actual pool engineering drawings. And so that's included, and if you look on, I think I marked it, which page. I've included all of the information, so it might be a little bit too much, but the model that we'd like to put in as the Triton, and it's on page 4 of that packet. Which should have a little yellow sticky on the, or a pink sticky on the.
I've got papers, right. And I just wanted to make sure, and it took me a while to figure it out, but I want to make sure it's a closed system so that you're not discharging water, and it appears to be a closed system, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the mechanical specs for that are also included. I think that's number 3 in the packet there. So it's got that cartridge filters.
That's what I have.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's right.
And you had soils and trees.
Yes, and so the soils, the report from that is also included. I think that was number 2 from Chuck Gross. And additionally, we had the pool, the conversation with the pool person, so regarding the retaining wall like we just talked about, and then the last thing is the tree, and the concern that I've had is safety with the tree, is particularly because of the number of trees that have come down in our neighborhood. And, I mean, there's another one just a little further afield that came down on a house over on, right off Hinkley Road over there. So we had an arborist come out and look at it, and they included their report here. It didn't necessarily make me feel like there was any less risk with keeping the tree. And the way it's leaning, especially since it's got the V and both of the trunks lean, my concern is the risk of safety for our kids. It's right over their bedrooms. And then the garage and the property area outside that we use quite frequently as well. So we've kept the removal of the tree included in the plans. And then
Or trees?
it's one
Mr.
tree.
Hunt referenced 2.
Right.
He
So-
referenced 2 trees.
He did. There, if you remember the tree on the right of the garage, it has fungus growing in the bottom of it, which he said is indicative of rot and ants that have sort of burrowed through in the middle. I'm not an arborist, so I'm maybe explaining that poorly. But that's what he, and in fact, we had a second person come out from Maltby Tree Service, who's a little further afield, and sort of gave the same assessment. And he said, you know, this tree is also, I didn't ask either one of them to look at it. They just looked at it in passing and said, I think you also need to take that tree down. So my concern is for the safety. They're both very
No,
close to property.
I understand
Yeah.
your concern.
But-
What I'm getting at is, does your plan say 1 tree or 2 trees? Because Mr. Hunt's report says 2.
I had only had 1 tree in our plan. I didn't realize the other one was a concern. So right now, the plan only has 1 tree. Mr. Hunt had included
What
the
are you
second one.
asking us for?
I guess I'd include the second tree for safety reasons as well.
Okay. And I saw there was one reference, and I thought it was a 2-for-1. I think it was your report. I've been reading a lot of reports, so it might have been somebody else's.
Yeah, on the second page here, I had said, more than happy to put in additional trees that are appropriate for a yard size. I don't know how many trees we can put in the yard.
No, and we completely understand that, but when I read the page,
It might be,
whatever page it was.
is it what we were, our plant recommendations? It's just the second page of my memo.
Yes,
but
yeah,
there-
it is. It's in the 1, 2, it's in the 3rd paragraph.
But there's only 1 tree listed, the redbud. Oh, I guess it's 3 redbud, I see.
True, but it looks like the performance standard here is 2. You wanted to replace the 1 with 2. We have a 3-tree performance standard.
Okay, I couldn't find the requirements for it, so if that's what it's supposed to be, then
It
I
is,
can
but
modify
we
it.
understand also that sometimes there's not enough room to put those trees.
Yes.
That's why we have a virtual tree bank. And you
Okay.
can just assign trees to the virtual tree bank.
So I couldn't find information on that either, because Kathy Bowen had recommended I look into that, but I didn't know where to look for it.
I don't know where it is either.
It's a great question.
It is.
I was trying to look
It's
at
not
the,
written anywhere?
No, I asked Kathy about it, but that to be determined.
Okay.
We're going to do some more work on it.
When all of our bylaws are codified, it will end up
Well, I can tell you, for 26 years,
where they are right now, we don't
Starting-
know.
starting 27, it's been 3 to 1.
it's 3 to
That's
1.
been the performance standard
Yeah.
that we've used.
Okay.
So we've been very uniform in that. But we also understand you can't always put them, and we're not looking for gigantic trees. So you can either, we could find a place for you to plant, or what we sometimes suggest to people is if they don't want to give an actual tree, that they can just designate money, and it goes into a virtual bank. It's actually,
Now, these are gigantic
it's right
trees.
here. What's that?
These are gigantic trees that are coming.
No, the replacement trees.
Right, I
are not.
understand that.
The replacement trees are not. I mean, if you've got a, 2-foot caliber tree that it has to come down, we don't suggest that you replace that with a 2-foot caliber tree. They're much smaller.
Yeah.
for lots of reasons. Planting, survivability, cost, all of those things. But there is a mechanism whereby you don't have to put them all in your yard,
Okay.
right? That's just kind of background. But that's why I wanted to know, are you asking for 2 trees to come down or 1 tree? And I think you said 2.
So it's 2, unfortunately. I didn't ask them to look at that one, but that's the recommendation. And after them saying that it doesn't seem to be healthy, it makes me concerned for that one as well.
The 1 tree is next to the garage between where the pool would be, excuse me, and the garage. And that's a double trunk.
Yes.
That Doug Hunt talked about. Okay,
Yes.
so that's the 1 tree. That's the one that we saw that's really big.
Yes.
Where's the second tree exactly?
It's just, actually, I think we had talked about it because I said last year there were ants coming out of it, but this year's there's the fungus was growing at the base of it.
Yeah.
It's just to the right of the garage.
As you're looking at
At
the
the
garage
garage,
from the
yes.
street, it's to the right.
It's probably like right on our property line.
Yeah, it must be. That doesn't look like there's much.
What's that?
That one there maybe.
Is it on your land? That's what I'm asking.
That's a good question. I'm assuming
Could be a
this,
problem if you take down somebody else's tree.
that would be a problem. I think it's this flowery, if you're looking at the,
Yeah, number 28.
28?
yes. That's in the, that's the only large tree right there, so that must be it.
It's located right on the line, so it's part yours perhaps and part your neighbor's.
You might want to take this step by step.
Yes.
Take down the 1 double trunk that will be in the way.
Right, and then have a chat.
And then
With our
wait
neighbors,
another
yeah.
6 months or a year and decide on the other tree.
Okay.
You may find a reason to keep it, it's not that close to the house, you know.
It doesn't, it doesn't have the lean like the other one does, so.
The difference, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Can I ask you one other question?
yes.
On,
So 1 tree, sorry. Then
Okay,
I guess
1
we can do
tree.
1 tree on that one.
Yeah,
Right.
and so in that case, your proposal for the 3 red buds would be fine.
Okay.
if you go to item number 2, which is the field report, and it says, I recommend digging test pits and/or test borings to determine the actual subsurface conditions. Did you do that, or I thought you used like a field map as opposed to test pits. Did anybody test the soil?
So we didn't do any testing on the soil. This was, Chuck Gross did an initial assessment and said, based on, his field report, those are the soil types. Concurrently, I also looked through online research. There's a web survey that shows you the soil types. And also, Boston did an open spaces plan where they've mapped out all the soils in the geological, I think I have the wrong word, but the rock surface underneath. And that's included in here as well. But they talk about the stability of the soil and the stability of the rock surfaces
Okay,
in those
no,
reports.
I just wanted to make sure, because it appeared as if you did not do actual testing.
We did not do actual testing. It would be $6,000 to get that actual testing done. So
All right.
the report was enough.
And also in your description, you said that the engineers said that in their reports, they did not indicate the need for a retaining wall. And I don't mean to be like an English teacher, but I just trying to figure out, did they say you don't need one?
So they said that to me, and then when they wrote up the report, they didn't include that part in the report. So they didn't indicate that there was one needed, but they told me when we had conversations that you wouldn't need a retaining wall. The pool person didn't write up a report, but they kind of talked me through the different situations where they would use a retaining wall, where they wouldn't. And they said they didn't see any, because they did a site visit as well. And they said they wouldn't see the need for a retaining wall either.
Okay. Well, that may make sense, having done the house on Cabot Street, which is powerfully close to the slope, if they don't need one. And I can't imagine that 15 feet would,
The house hasn't fallen down yet?
not yet.
Okay.
It's not going anywhere.
All right, any other questions?
I just have 2 comments. One comment, one question, Mr. Chairman, a recommendation. I agree totally with the assessment on the tree. My son has one identical to it in the backyard, but not in as poor condition. And his arborist has told him it's got to go in 5 years at the most.
The one with the fork or the
Yes,
other one?
fork,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. They're untenable.
And am I correct that there's a difference between a V and a U? Because I heard an arborist say
The alphabet there is.
U's are very strong,
Right.
and a V is not.
Structurally, that is actually correct, yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so is yours a V,
It's a V.
you know?
It's a V?
I believe it's a V.
Right, when the trunks come down, it's almost like you can see them joining,
Yes.
Yes.
and a U is like something you can sit in. It's like a,
Now you can
Chair.
sit in it, yeah, it's a V.
Yeah, it's, there's no doubt it's a V,
okay.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah. I think Judith agrees.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Same situation, identical. The other thing that I'd recommend in the absence of the borings is that in the restrictions, we know no blasting.
Yes. Have you talked to a contractor? They think they can do it without blasting?
They mentioned the possibility of blasting, of needing to blast.
That would change the plan, because we have the town has a blasting bylaw, and we'd have to, that would have to be part of the plan and part of our condition. How do you do that? Do you do test
Well, I would say
borings?
that you wouldn't want to do it this way, but if you do encounter bedrock to the point where you would have to blast, I would return to the commission. But then you're talking about mobilization, demobilization cost to have contractor, all right, we're going to go home for a couple weeks and come back when you get an answer. But otherwise, that's the benefit of doing borings or test pits, is that you eliminate that risk of having to stop halfway through and modify what the approach is.
Okay. What's the, I can obviously go back and do some research on the blasting bylaws, but what are the, like, how long is the process to go through that if it's needed?
Oh, I don't think it's lengthy at all, as long as you follow the bylaw, but we'd have to incorporate that into our notice of intent.
Okay.
And the neighbors may want to be heard. The problem with blasting is sometimes the vibrations will follow the bedrock, and if it follows it from your house to the neighbor's house, there can be an impact on the neighbor's house. It's
Okay.
not the noise, or, nothing's going to explode up into the air, but the vibrations are very powerful, and it would be a significant difference for your abutters.
Okay.
Just to know that. But the bottom line is you'd simply have to follow the blasting bylaw.
Okay.
And it sets out all the conditions. It's not something that we'd make up. It's something that's already,
Right.
it's a regulation that is already in place.
Okay. So they didn't, I mean, they said they don't know. You know, there's always that possibility. So,
Can you dig it out? I know it's hot.
Yeah, I mean,
They have chippers too.
Chippers, yeah.
Chippers, yeah.
I mean, it's,
Tough and
contractor's
expensive.
gonna
Right.
shake his head and say, I don't know how much it's gonna cost you, and, they're gonna do the contractor thing.
yeah.
But, I mean, it's, I'm just.
We've all seen the contractor thing.
Yep. Thing that, but, yeah, I mean, to hammer it out with a,
Yeah, it does change the impact on the environment. I'm not saying you can't do it, and we've approved blasting in the past, as long as there's a compliance. But if it's not in the notice of intent, then the abutters don't know. So if you put it in the notice of intent, then they'd be on notice that this is a potential impact on
Okay.
their property. It may not be.
yeah, I guess it comes down to whatever risk you're willing to accept. Can proceed without, with the hope for the best.
I think we'll
Side
start
note.
with that. And then this isn't until next year, so, as we're going through our planning and stuff like that, if we find out there's a need for it, we can come back before the commission.
And
Advisor will
ask,
talk with the building department about that too.
Yes.
beforehand? So
Yeah,
check the bylaws, but see the building department.
okay,
It's because the bylaw is not, it's not unique to the Conservation Commission. It's the bylaw of whatever you're doing, whether or not you go to the Building Commission or the Planning Board. It's the same bylaw for all of us.
okay,
All right, so it's just really a notification because it's not in your notice of intent, but it would have to be if we allowed it, so that the abutters would have a chance to voice their opinion.
So, Mr. Chairman, the process would be, if you require blasting, you would come back for what we call an amendment to the notice of intent.
Yes.
That would be the
Okay.
process. You're looking for process.
Yes.
So that's how the process would go,
okay,
okay? And then you'd, come in again. Very simply.
excellent. And I remember seeing the amendment process in the
Yes.
documents.
In the,
so.
in the regs, right.
Okay. Any other questions? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question or a comment they would like to make? So are you comfortable proceeding on the basis that, of returning to us if in fact you're informed that you do need to blast?
Yes,
Okay. Well, with that, and we could put that in as a provision.
As a condition, yeah.
And the other issue that you should be aware of is that if we issue an order of conditions, it has what we call boilerplate provisions in it, which say that your contractor cannot store equipment that is gas-fueled or has petroleum products in it overnight within our buffer zone. So they
Okay.
can't keep their equipment there. So they have to, it makes it difficult for the contractor. They have to kind of move in and out. So you can't keep it overnight. They can't refuel their equipment. Especially if you had something like a chipper, if you needed a chipper to get through some bedrock, that would, I don't know, if it has hydraulic hoses on it, it probably does.
okay,
That's a problem. Those hydraulic hoses, they pop all the time. So you have to have a spill control plan. I don't mean to make it sound complicated, because it's not. You just have to be aware of it.
okay,
So when you talk to your contractor, you have to say
Let
your
them know.
staging is off-site,
okay.
okay?
I did have one more question. You're adding a lot of impermeable surface here to your yard. And I'm just wondering, what kind of bricks are you using? Are you using the ones that in fact the water can seep through, or the ones that are solid?
Yeah, our plan was to use, I think they're called uniblock tumblers. We used them in our last project at 44 Cliff, which we went through the Conservation Commission for. So it's the same set of tumblers that are permeable, so water goes through, right? Yes, so, and I think they're, is it dry laid? So they're,
I believe so, yes.
so the water can go through, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so is there a consensus to issue an order of conditions?
So moved.
And is there also a consensus on the limitations in terms of no blasting unless previously approved, no storage, and the typical boilerplate? Do we have anything else?
Just make sure that we include that the approval's for a single tree, not for also the second.
Correct.
Correct.
It's clear that it's for
Right.
one.
And also that the filtration system for the pool is a closed system, and you're not discharging chlorinated water into the Neponset River?
Yes.
Okay, all right. With those conditions, is there a motion to issue an order of conditions? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor? Go.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for, getting all this material to us. It's really nice when we ask for something and you come back in and give it to us.
Too much.
Very thorough.
It was very good.
Thank you.
Nice presentation.
Better more than less. Anytime.
Always.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda is notice of intent, 153 Hillside Street.
Yes.
That one's misbehaving.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm good, how are you?
After I sent it.
Good evening, all, and welcome. Will you introduce yourselves, please?
Yes, I'm Marion McKettrick, and I'm here with Webster Collins, and we're here to I'm the attorney for the trust that owns 153 Hillside Street, which is a vacant lot on a right-of-way off Hillside Street. We're back here. We asked for a continuance last time in order to develop an alternative tree mitigation plan. So our purpose tonight is to discuss the alternative plan, which I sent to the commission. I've also included a cover letter. So what I sent you was a deed restriction document, as well as a plan that shows you an area of the lot that would be set aside as a deed-restricted area. The deed, and then in the letter, I also explained that we would also propose a tree payment of, I think it was $7,000, to pay for some additional street trees. But I'd like to talk a little bit about the restricted area and the purposes of creating this area on the lot. As you know from looking at this application from several months ago, this is a large lot with an irregular shape. It's adjacent to the Corliss family home. It's also adjacent to a home on Ford Ranch Road. And then on the left side of the restricted area of this corner of the lot is the roadway for Wentworth Farm Development, which is a new development that is being built to the left of this area. And as a condition for the Wentworth Farm development, 3 conservation areas or open land areas had to be created and maintained forever. And one of them is parcel C. So on the plan, you'll see parcel C to the left of the deed restricted area, which loops around the Corliss family home.
Corliss is one of the owners of Scott's Woods.
Yes. There are 3, well, I think there are 3 trustees right now. And then this Area C also includes the right-of-way from Hillside Street that goes back to the limits of the Wentworth Farm development, although it is not going to be used to access the development. It is the right-of-way, however, for several homes that are on, Corliss is the primary one, the Jepson home, and there's another home that has the right-of-way off this, that has the right to use this access road. So I actually had a preliminary meeting with Steve Ives, thank you very much, and we discussed this, and we considered whether we needed to go back in and do a new wetlands mapping for this area. That would only be, the only purpose of doing that would be if we could identify a larger area of upland within this restricted area, in which case it would have been nice. We thought that would be a good argument, but I talked to both the engineer and to Lenore White, who's been involved with doing the wetland mapping, the more recent wetland mapping for this project, and they both sat down and reviewed the Carr Research Laboratory original mapping, and they are both very familiar with this site. They've walked the whole area, they've walked this back area, and in their opinion, going back in and doing a new mapping isn't going to cause, you're not going to find any dramatic change to the lines that have already been identified on the Carr map. And these are the wetlands lines that you see on this map. These back lines were not remapped recently when we were working on the notice of intent for 153 Hillside Street. What Lenore White did point out to me, though, is that this site is an area that she calls a braided stream area. She said it's a very rather special habitat area for wildlife, and particularly for birds. And in my letter, I went into some detail. That's all from Lenore White, not from my knowledge. But she explained that the plants that grow in this type of area, the soils, the seeds, and the trees are all protective, particularly of bird populations, but of all wildlife. And that she thought it would be a very desirable thing to set this aside as a restricted area. And that she also thought, and I do too, that the fact that it happens to be adjacent to open land area C is an advantage, because it's a fairly narrow area that was designated as this open land. And adding this to it creates, much more protection. It's very advantageous to the lot on Ford Ranch Road that's directly adjacent to it. And of course, it's advantageous to the to the owner of this lot as well, because this area of open land just won't be able to be touched for the 20-year period. The restricted land, the land restriction can be extended beyond 20 years. The terms of Massachusetts general laws allow such an extension to be continued if desired.
Why is it,
landowner.
why is it limited to 20 years, though?
The state law limits restrictions that are not imposed as a result of subdivision approvals and things like that to a limited time period.
So this could not be in perpetuity?
It could not be in perpetuity. As I said in my letter, if this land is developed, if I were the owner of the lot and I purchased it, I certainly would look into whether it were an advantage to me from a tax standpoint to make it a permanent conservation area. It might be, and it might not be. I'm not an expert in that. I've looked at that for landowners in other locations. Sometimes there is really no advantage, particularly because the value of the land, because of the presence of wetlands and so forth, isn't affected that much by whether it's permanent conservation or not, or whether it's a restricted area, as this one would be. So the choice is really, for the present time, it's more of a practical choice, because what we're trying to do here is to come up with a plan that can be approved now, that will be in place, a payment that can be made now for some trees, and then if the lot is sold for development, the future owner doesn't have to do anything but observe whatever conditions the Conservation Commission has imposed. If it's never developed, and for some reason it's deemed to be advantageous for financial reasons or otherwise, for the trust to do something else with it, then they haven't overspent at this point on things that they really don't need to do, because the land's not ever going to be developed. This is a decision point. We have to have an approval of an NOI, because it's the last step in determining whether the lot can be developed. And if it's a developable lot, it has a certain value. If there are a lot more restrictions, it has a different value. It's already been approved as an A&R lot. It's already been approved from a access and frontage standpoint by the building commissioner. And we've laid out, a footprint for a house on the lot, and you've looked at all the wetlands issues, and we're working our way through those. So this tree mitigation issue is really the last decision that has to be made. And we really would like to have something that doesn't require a lot of future work that somebody might have to do in the future but wouldn't do if they didn't develop the lot. We'd like to just know what has to be done at this point. And we think the restriction it really makes a lot of sense, especially given the shape of the lot. The only thing I would say is, if I could have, I would have liked to have put the restriction all the way across that side. And the reason we can't do that is because the legal frontage for this lot is Ford Ranch Road. Even though it's not going to be used, the driveway isn't going to come in that way. And so I can't ask you to create a conservation restriction or a restricted area across that frontage, because that would become a legal impediment to access, and it's no longer accessible frontage, and it's not legally qualified as accessible frontage. So for sort of technical reasons, we can't do that.
You lost me on that, I think, because I'm looking at Ford Ranch Road. So are you talking about the deed restricted area?
No.
Has frontage, or the entire lot has frontage on Ford Ranch Road?
No. I'm saying that when we looked at where to create a restricted area, we talked about the fact that it would be nice to actually put it all the way across the edge of the lot, all the way along Ford Ranch Road. Because that area actually isn't going to be used. It's going to be left pretty much as it is. There's not going to be a driveway built there. But the reason you can't do it is, once you create the deed restriction, or if you create a conservation easement there, you're creating a legal impediment to providing frontage. And a lot has to have legal frontage even if you don't use it.
That I understand, but what I don't understand is, why don't you take the shaded area, which is a currently proposed restricted area, and make it a conservation easement? Because that would not lapse in 20 years. Right now, you've got a sunset provision where if the lot is sold in the future, after 20 years,
Right.
the owner can come back in and develop it.
Right.
So what's the matter with putting a conservation easement on it?
Well, it's a more complicated process. I can write the easement now and I can record
You've
it.
already
I mean,
done
write the
it. You did it
restriction.
on Highland.
I did, but
Highland
it's
Street.
complicated. I mean, you mean for Wentworth Farm? I'm not done.
No, not for Wentworth. You did it for the Burks. Didn't you write that one? Maybe Ned did.
No, I think it was Ned Corcoran.
Ned Corcoran.
No,
Ned Corcoran.
I didn't do, that was a little bit more direct. It was easier to do that conservation restriction. Ours, they've both been approved at the state level, but mine took longer for Wentworth Farm because Wentworth Farm is a more complicated site. So I guess I would just say to Webb,
There's a real tax issue here that has to be investigated, because that could be an advantage to a buyer and where it's not advantage to the trust. So I just think it would, the way we've got it structured today is the best of both worlds. By making a payment now, this is, I think everyone knows, this property basically was acquired in settlement of the whole Chapter 40B issue facing Scott's Woods. It's a remnant parcel that a great deal of money was paid for to make this whole thing settle out for the benefit of the town. And where it sits right now, there's not going to be any development for this land for a long time. I don't know when. We just don't know. There are certain agreements in place that prevent this land being developed until Wentworth Farms is sold out. That's part of the agreement, and not part of the settlement with the town. And so right now, at this particular point in time, I just think it would be folly to superimpose something that is so in the future, we just don't know the tax impact of it on the potential buyer who is not known at this time.
I don't see it as being what was described, but rather a substitution.
Excuse me? I don't
Easement
understand.
being a substitution for a restriction.
right.
That's what John was.
That's what we're talking about. We're just, so I think what Webb, well, I mean, you heard the explanation. It's
It
a
makes it
fairly,
more valuable if you don't put the conservation restriction on it. That's what I heard.
Correct.
It's money.
At some
Yeah.
point in time, we might get our money back. I don't know when that'll ever be.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about two different things.
I know.
Maybe.
That was just kind of a jest.
Okay. Because obviously, the lot that you can develop is going to provide a return on your investment.
Well, no.
No.
What we paid for it, we way overpaid for it in settlement, and it just, it was not, the returns will be pennies on the dollar.
yeah, I'm not sure, without getting into the actual prices paid, which is not a public record, it's important to understand that this lot was not given to the trust. It was paid for at a market value for land that wasn't fully even approved for development.
I think
So
we're
there
all
is
fully
no
aware of
great
that.
profit margin that's going to be realized on the lot. If that's an issue for anyone, that isn't really what's going to be happening.
The issue for me is we've got 2.14 and
Mm-hmm.
0.62, so we're talking 3 acres of land here, and if we're trying to protect this land and still make it developable, my concern is we don't set up a system where we can make 2 lots, because that wasn't the part of it.
There's never going to be 2 lots here. I have no problem of having Marion draft something that it won't become 2 lots. That's not at all.
It'd have to be, you wouldn't even have the acreage to do 2 lots.
Well, it's 3 acres?
This is 2 acre zone. This is
That's
80,000 square foot
80,000 square
zoning.
foot zone, that's correct.
Double A zone.
Right.
Okay.
It is a larger lot than you would need, but it's not large enough to subdivide.
Is that double A?
Double A zoning.
Double A.
Yeah.
Okay, any thoughts or concerns with this? I mean, I understand what you just said, and I'm not ignoring it. My preference would be to make it permanent by making it a conservation easement.
I feel the same way, John.
But
See, 20 years goes by awfully quickly.
And we're not going to be around.
To protect it. so-
But I don't want to,
And what mechanism is there going to be to alert a subsequent commission that it has expired? So I would go for the easement as well.
Yeah.
That was the only notation I
stumbling
made.
block.
All the documentation, Mary, and that is why not in perpetuity, and an easement would give us that.
This is just a stumbling block that's being put before us. I just don't think it's proper. I mean, we're doing every single thing right. This is a very special piece of land. We're treating it as a very special piece of land, but I don't want to, in my own mind, make decisions for someone who I don't even know who's going to own the land someday. I just
But
think
what
it would-
if he can't,
it's just
the person,
not the way
he.
my thinking is going at all.
But if you
Everybody
can't
takes that
develop it.
risk when they buy land. I mean, you can't go down the
I
road,
understand what you're talking about.
so.
I truly think it's an overreach.
I thought it was
I thought we were
unnecessarily
doing something wonderful
complicated
being
for
here
what
this
we were
evening,
trying to
and that's
do.
why I came,
Yeah.
on purpose. This is part of the original intent. And this is wetlands anyway. It's going to be open all the time. It's going to remain, and
Well, if that's true, what difference would a conservation easement make?
I don't.
I tried to explain in my letter that I think that conservation easement restriction, speaking of it as a restriction, which is what our proposal is, it's a deeded restriction. The plan actually goes on record with the restriction.
For 20 years, yes.
Yeah, so anyone who buys this land, and I think 20 years is a pretty long time considering that this is a trust now and it'll either continue or it will be developed sometime within that time period. They're going to know that they can't touch this area in any way and that it has special characteristics.
And then 20 years from now, what could be done on it? Because you're telling me that if it's an 80,000 AA zone, it can't be subdivided. So what could be done at that point that would be somehow impacted or restricted by a conservation easement?
Well, first of all, as I pointed out in the letter, conservation laws change and protections change. So I suppose the same thing applies to a conservation easement. If the protections for this area that currently exist because of wetlands and everything else somehow change in the future, once you put a restriction like this or a conservation easement on the land, it still can't be touched. It doesn't matter what changes might occur.
But that's our intent.
Well, if a conservation commission in 10 years decides it's okay to allow some use of this area, there's a little bit of upland, or you can do a little path or a shed or something like that, this restriction would prevent that.
We could make a conservation easement that allows that. We just saw one for which estate? It was up off of Milton Street. We just saw it. And one of the issues was what can be done here for recreational purposes. You were involved in it, weren't you? What's the name of the family that owns it? I think it's Milton Street. It's not 88 Milton, but it's across the street. And there are several buildings on there. This is within the last year that we addressed it. But my point is that you could make a restriction that allows for, recreational use, so that the owner can...
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, that's true. It is a very complicated process. It's expensive. It takes a lot of time on the part of the attorney. So I just thought that this was a more immediate and direct and clear way to do it, with the option of creating the easement if it turns out to be the best way to handle it. And it could be the best way but it depends on what the ownership is in the future. I mean, if it's going to be owned as conservation land anyway or something, it's a waste of time, basically, to do this with this particular piece. That was my thinking, quite honestly. I think probably it will end up being sold for development at some point. I'm sure the trustees will eventually want to realize something from all of this, because a lot of money was paid for the land.
Are you talking about the whole lot?
That happens.
Are you talking about the whole lot? I mean, the buildable part?
Yeah, I'm talking about what's going to happen with the whole lot, which we don't know.
We're assuming that's going to be sold. I thought it already was.
Of course you should assume that it's possible, because that's what you're doing when you're approving each step.
Right.
That's true. You're also establishing a value, but the value has significance for many purposes, including for placing the land in for future restrictions. If it's land that can be developed, it has a certain value. That land then becomes value that's a benefit to the donors, and so other things can sometimes be done with land like this. I mean, I can't tell you for sure that's going to happen, so I can't say to you for sure this is why we should do this. But I think the restriction is a good start, It shows the area that you would apply this restriction to if the lot is going to be developed, if the rest of it's going to be developed. And it's about as far as you need to go at this point,
But
not knowing that.
conservation land also has value to buyers. Some of the major developers in town, every time they build their house, it's next to conservation land. We can cite that again and again. And many people, when something is advertised, it's, oh, and it's right next to conservation land, people like that idea. So it can add value as well, not, you know, you're saying value if it can be developed, but there's also value if it can't be developed. And if this is such a precious piece of land, and actually, Mr. Collins, we apply the same standards to all of the land in Milton. When we see wetlands, when we see pools that are vernal pools, we apply the very same standards to us. And I'm speaking for myself, but I think most commissioners would agree. All of the land in Milton we consider important and valuable. So, Marion, I would say, you know, you're seeing this as maybe to be sold in the future and someone might want to develop it. At the same time, you can make the argument it's just as valuable if it's restricted in a conservation easement.
But I'm not arguing that this piece will be developed. That's not my point.
No,
My point is the whole piece may be developed or could be donated for another purpose. But when people do that kind of donation, they do it if it's advantageous because the land has a certain value basically for tax purposes. Depends on whether the trust is doing it or whether an individual is doing it. It depends on the individual's financial situation. That's why I don't know whether it's ever going to happen. But it does happen sometimes. It has happened in other areas in Milton. So
Can I
that's
ask a
speculative,
question?
and I'd like you to keep it in mind because that was why I thought a deed restriction was quite satisfactory for the time being. That it was simple to do. It was clear. I could just record the restriction. It would be in place. You know for sure it's going to be in place for 20 years. And if it's more advantageous to convert it to a conservation easement, then a future owner would do that.
I may have had a misimpression. When we were out there and we were approving these lines, I thought there was a house going in right off the access road from Hillside Street.
That is what we're getting improved. That's what the NOI is for.
So that if you took like a square and put it on here, do you think you may need that restricted area to put a house in?
No.
That's right.
Then I just go back to what I said before. What difference does it make? And I think you said it has tax implications. But it looks like if you did all of the trees, it's $13,000. And we appreciate the fact that you're restricting it for 20 years, but there's only a difference of $6,000 between the $7,000 that you're proposing to pay and this restriction. So this restriction, you're assigning it to $6,000. It doesn't sound like it's a big financial item. So that's what I'm stumped at. I don't know why you'd want to restrict it for 20 years but not restrict it forever, unless there was you needed that land to build something. That would I'd understand. And I could completely understand that. So if you didn't restrict it and you paid $13,000 instead of $7,000.
I'm beginning to.
Would you rather do, I mean,
I mean, really.
we really wanted to, we really like to end
We
this
came
and
in
figure
here
it out.
with the best of intent, and now I feel I'm being blackmailed.
Blackmail?
Very
It's not
honest.
blackmail. We're trying to protect the land.
Absolutely. You're, number one, you forced us into this whole tree situation, which we knew nothing about when we bought this land. We bought it for the best of intent for the town of Milton and set it aside. As you know, the whole story behind it. And now we're getting chipped away, and chipped away. And it's not right.
But we apply it to everyone.
Well,
We just applied it to the last person that appeared before you heard it.
I heard that, but there was no chipping away there. There's just telling them they had to have a blasting permit, so there wasn't any chipping away.
I'm talking about the tree
That's a joke.
replacement. It's a tree replacement that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we have been as uniform as we possibly can be. in applying that 3-to-1 performance standard to everyone.
Instead of the tree replacement and having no restriction on this land, we're giving up a .62 acre parcel of land. We thought that was very valuable. We thought you'd say thank you. Now we have other requests being made beyond what we already have done.
You're giving it up for 20 years, but a future owner can take it back.
Instead of paying another $6,000 for trees.
Where do you come up with the
We're really doing
13,000,
something here that's
John?
great.
The number of trees, the 26 trees? I'm just going on Marion's letter.
Times
I
three?
didn't count them. Times 500. $500 a tree.
But isn't it,
It's in the letter,
right, but isn't it 26 trees that have to be replaced?
yes.
Yeah, the number of trees are being taken down that are over 4-inch caliper is 26.
Oh, is it
Right,
26?
so it's times
Oh,
three.
that's times 3.
Yeah, 78.
Oh, I thought the
No,
26
so
was
I
the
came up
total
with
of...
$23,000, not,
No, I don't know. I actually didn't know what you were talking about, John. I'm sorry. But I know that I explained what the payment of $7,000 would be, would
Yes.
pay for. And that would be in addition to creating this restricted area. I really don't want to have to come back.
I don't want to have to come back either, but I don't want to be held up at the same time.
But the replacement value, now we're talking, what, 52, 78? I thought 26 was the replacement number.
no, that's the original number of
Oh,
trees.
that's the original number. Oh,
Yeah.
good Lord.
Well, look
It's
what we're
3
giving
times
you.
26. I thought 26 was the total.
I know what it is. I mean, that's why we came in with an alternative proposal. That's a very large number to
It
pay.
sure
for this
is.
lot, which is going to remain almost totally undeveloped because there's so little area that you can do anything with. I mean, you start to just, so I thought this was a better proposal for this lot. That's all I.
I understand. I was using the wrong set of numbers. So I apologize, Webb, on that, but it actually makes it even
I understand where you're coming from.
tougher
But
on us.
not right.
Wow. So are there any other questions from commissioners, or can we, I don't know if there are any abutters or members of the public that, are there any members of the
I did that
public?
calculation, by the way, for 23,000 based upon a $300 cost. If you go 500, it's $39,000,
Right.
which is a lot.
So which is the $300 cost?
26,000,
23,000.
23,000.
23.
Well, I think it's a value, the piece of land is valuable from a conservation standpoint.
It is. That's why we're trying to protect it.
Yeah, okay.
That's the point. We don't want to give it up after 20 years. We're just trying to protect the land.
So would anybody be amenable to the easement as a substitute for the restriction and call the trees a wash?
Well, I'm certainly in favor of the easement, but instead of giving up what I thought was $6,000, we'd be giving up $39,000.
Right.
Well, let me ask a different question. Is there any area that would need replacement trees along the access way? Where they're coming down, is there any room there to put in?
No, because what's happening is the access way is not in the right place right now.
Right, it becomes the road.
It has to be
it becomes the road.
relocated, because it's occupying land that belongs to people who own property on either side. And it's being it will be relocated if the lot is developed, because the septic treatment area is on one side of the road,
Understood.
and part of that is the road right now. That's why it has to be relocated. Now, I mean, it
understand.
will have to be if this lot is developed. If not, then nothing will probably be done to the road, and it will remain the way it is. None of this work will take place, but,
All right, well.
so I don't know what,
If you're asking me, would I pay $39,000 for 0.6 acres? Yeah, I would. But we're not exactly buying it, but we get the same benefit for the public. It's open space and it's
Right.
preserved. So the answer to your question is yes. That's just personal, I don't know what you
That'd
think.
be-
So basically what I'm hearing is we put a permanent conservation restriction on and we save $39,000. That's the bottom line.
Well, others haven't spoken, but that seems
That's what's
appropriate
on
to
the
me.
table. That's what's proposed.
And this would be typical of the conservation restrictions I've seen, wouldn't be anything, I assume, like we could. It's just not as simple a process as I
No
might-
McDonald's drive-throughs, no cell towers.
No blasting.
Well, I haven't recently gone through the process for Wentworth Farm. I know that, I certainly could draft the instrument, take it to the various entities, including back to the Conservation Commission for approval. It would take months, but on the other hand, it is similar, but much smaller than the one we've just done for Wentworth Farm. So I just want you to, I guess I'd say, would you consider doing that instead? In lieu of making any tree payment, just doing this, but doing it as a conservation
What is the
restriction.
cost of the conservation?
It's just my hours, and
How many
I
hours do you
have
think?
just,
I can-
Well,
If you two want to step outside and talk,
hundreds.
A lot less than 78 trees.
Anyway, the bottom line is we'll do it.
Yeah, it's not gonna be that great, I don't think, because we just went through it just from another more complicated development. So even though I was kind of resisting doing it, if that would satisfy the Conservation Commission, I think I can do it without it being a huge issue.
And this is with rights for recreation and all the other stuff that gets allowed.
We would have to draft it, we would bring it back to the Conservation Commission, I would.
Okay.
That language is something that you'd have to give us some advice on, but whatever you might be willing to allow. And I know that's allowed, because I've been through that with Wentworth Farm. They were looking for it, and I said, well, we're not asking for it in that one.
I know where it was. It was in the, when we were doing the Greg area. We were looking at the trusts, wasn't it in there? The recreational use?
Yes,
It was in the forestry plan
Forestry plan,
on the Greg
on
land?
Hillside Street.
On Hillside Street, yeah.
Yes.
137
Right.
Hillside, that's
Yeah.
correct.
That's where it was.
Yeah. Well, I think, okay. Hands
But
in the air.
we're looking for a consensus here, and Ingrid and
Yeah.
Hans, I'm not sure where you are on that.
Well, okay.
No, I'm in
Sorry.
agreement.
I'm fine with it,
Yep.
if you're okay.
Yeah, well, I would, so I guess what we'd be asking the Conservation Commission to do would be to draft an order of conditions, with one condition being that we would prepare a conservation easement subject to approval by the Conservation Commission. This is going to be granted to the Conservation Commission of the town of Milton, and it will be the same process, actually, as we've just been going through with Wentworth Farm. Correct? I mean, you do the order of conditions now, but it's subject to
But
the
what is the order of conditions for?
NOI that we just submitted. Notice of intent.
We're still running with that
You've-
proposed house on that site.
Yeah, as of the last meeting that we had,
Right.
you had approved all the elements of that plan,
Right, okay.
except the tree mitigation. So I'm back here
This
for
is
the,
just the tree mitigation, nothing more.
So I'm a little bit, I didn't bring a list with me, but there are various elements to that plan showing where the utility lines, the water line, the gas line, and so forth are going to be going.
Yes.
And whether work has to be done around the edges of the road or on the culvert, and where and the plan also shows the work area for the house. So it's a plan, if approved, that would limit a developer to only working within the approved area on the plan, is that right?
Called a building envelope, yes.
Building envelope, yeah.
Bless you.
Yeah, can I ask a question? And I'm not trying to look for problems or issues, but my memory is when we were standing there were stakes out there where the house was going.
Yes.
But in looking at your map of the deed restriction, it's got the wetland flags crossing across the lot.
This
And
isn't the plan that we submitted for the NOI.
No, I know it's not the plan, but I'm just eyeballing where where these flags are. Do you know if we have that here? Because it looks like it's running right through where the house was.
No, the house is right up at the top of the lot.
Right up here.
The house is up here, John, and members of the commission.
Right in there.
Up in here. Correct, right in here? Is that, am I? My finger in the right location.
That's where she was pointing, yeah.
Is that correct? So the house is actually, if you look at the deed restricted area,
Yeah.
you go south and east,
Yeah.
or to the right and down. So that's where the house is.
This is the right-of-way from Hillside Street?
That's correct.
This is where the driveway's going to be?
Yep.
Hillside
This
is
is where
here.
the house
House
is
is.
going to be?
That's correct. Right, yes, exactly. So no, John, this is running behind the house.
What my concern was that this roadway is being moved this way.
That's correct.
And I didn't know if we were pinching on that line, because I wasn't looking at both plans at the same time.
Well, we definitely.
If you've got room,
All those lines were reflagged for your, for
Yes.
the NOI. All these lines up here were reflagged, and I know
And I'm
the
happy with them.
conservation agent has looked at them, you've looked at them. So any changes that had to be made have been made on the application. The plan that you have, as of 2 meetings ago, is the final plan. And the engineer's coming in later tonight for another application if we do need to talk to him. He told me he would. Oh, there he is. Sorry, he's here.
See, I thought
So
they were
if-
gonna
I think
squeeze by
Jeff
that,
Kane might be
that's
able to
right
answer
here.
your questions better than me.
So it's-
Bigger than that.
There's not a lot of space, but.
Okay. No, I'm comfortable. I was concerned that you might not know how tight that line was, because it doesn't show where the house would be located in this, but it does here, so I understand that.
Okay.
So I'm good.
All right.
I just didn't want you to get, surprised by anything. Fair enough, thank you.
I'm always surprised by everything. Thank you.
So was this,
So, go ahead.
well, I'm not sure, are you looking for a vote on the original, on the plan that we had before?
I think what I'm looking for is a final vote on an order of conditions, and that there will be a requirement in the order of conditions that we complete this conservation easement as shown on the plan that we've submitted, and that the planning board approve it. So sometimes when you do an order of conditions, you have a condition that requires future work, so it would be that kind of condition. And the other conditions, I think, are all pretty straightforward.
Right, I was comfortable with the sighting plan and the stake of the house when we were there visiting. So that's good with me, and of course, you know of our usual boilerplate conditions.
I do.
And you've got the special condition of
Yes.
contingency
Yes.
that we approve this restriction.
Require conservation easement and that the planning board approve it.
Yes. Anything else? Are there any comments from abutters or members of the public? I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. Steve, it's a permanent conservation easement.
Thank you.
Okay.
We agree.
Yep.
All right, so is there a motion to approve the order of conditions with those conditions?
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a discussion? All in favor? Good to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Yeah, you're welcome.
See, I'm going to add this to, this is the map, okay, because that shows the permanent conservation easement.
Yes, okay. And we will reference,
That shut off?
It just shut off, yes.
what's the date of that plan?
Right, next on the agenda, number 4, enforcement order at 50 Summer Street. Sumner Street. Hi, good evening.
So, yeah, my parents, English isn't their first language, so
Okay.
I'm just gonna help them.
Yeah, I need my daughter to help us.
Yeah, to translate.
Thank you.
And what is your daughter's name?
Christina.
Christine. Okay. And what do you go by as a last name, if you don't mind me asking?
You. Yeah.
Y-E-U?
Y-U.
Y-U, thank you.
All right, now this is an enforcement order, and I assume that you received that order, and it relates to the backyard.
Backyard.
And our concerns are twofold. One is that there was some clearing on the land that went back into land that I think we own, that is the Conservation Commission owns. And the second is that you did some filling that blocked the drainage pipe from your neighbor across the street.
Filling?
And the water backed up into his basement.
Flooded his home.
and flooded his home. And just, I might be able to show you, and that might be of assistance to you.
Yeah, you said filling, like soil?
Soil, yes.
Soil, yeah, soil got.
This is, let me get oriented here. This is your home?
Yeah.
Okay.
So had you cut down some
That's your
trees
property line?
and
And that land is owned by the Conservation Commission, in the town of Milton, actually. There is a drain pipe here that was covered with soil. And, right, and the drain pipe runs from here to here. And it flows in that direction towards, what brook, is that Trout Brook, Steve? Is that Trout Brook?
Pope's
Yes,
Pond.
Pine,
No, not Pope, but it's
Pine Tree Brook.
not Pine Tree.
No,
It's Trout. It's
it is
Trout.
trout, which then flows into.
There's a brook back here,
Right.
and the water flows from this person's house diagonally, and it opens up. The town has gone and dug it out, so it's now flowing again, but it was stopped up because it was covered over, and the water went back this way into this man's house.
Okay.
See, he called DPW from the town,
Yeah.
and they dug this out and opened it up, and you can see in your backyard where the cones,
Yeah.
and there's a hole there. That's now flowing, so the water is now leaving his house and going this way.
Okay.
All right, so, and it looks like this, we've got some old pictures that show trees in this area, and now it looks like it's been cleared back in the direction of the street.
Here's the 2014. Here is about where your property line is.
Okay.
so generally to do that sort of work, you're supposed to request a permit. You're supposed to apply for a permit first for approval to do that.
Okay, yeah, because, okay, I'll explain to them the filling part,
Okay.
and then I'll,
Yeah.
say. So 佢意思話like 佢嗰度以前有條管咧，跟住而家有啲草地咁樣塞咗管咁樣，跟住整嗰啲草地。
唔係喎，我哋冇做任何嘢喎，嗰度係冇喐過嗰條管嘅喎，反而係乜嘢咧？你話啲人咧對面嗰啲人剷草咧，同埋嗰啲樹葉嗰啲咧，我哋睇住佢咧，將啲樹抌落嗰 corner 嗰度喎，我哋冇喐過嗰度㗎，嗰條不嬲都係咁㗎，冇喐
That
到嗰
pipe,
度啊。
we never, like, we didn't,
We don't touch
we
the
don't
pipe.
touch the pipe, but
Yeah.
the grass and the trees, like, we thought that areas, like, were our area, and the reason being, we thought that,
啲樹葉
yeah.
啲草啊。
Okay, yeah, I'll explain to them. Sorry, it's just because there's like two different things. So what I was trying to say was like we thought that area was our land. So we like cleared up the area because there were snakes and like we were planning when we moved in originally. We were supposed to, have our gathering, and then there were supposed to be like children, and we noticed that there were snakes in the area, so we wanted to clear up that area with, the like it was like dead trees, branches, just like to clear up that area because we thought that area was ours. So
How long have you been there, Christina?
4 years.
4 years,
4 years.
yeah, yeah. So
真係
yeah, and then
睇多4年
the filling 嗰個 block 嗰個 pipe 嗰啲同我講。
冇啊，冇
But the
喐過
pipe
㗎
that we never like touch
因
anything.
為我哋知道嗰度係去水好
Yeah,
重
because we
要
know
嘅。
that like there's
Very
a pipe there.
important that-
There's no way that we would block it though.
So did you install an irrigation system?
有冇install the
有
irrigation
有
system?
有
Yes.
So the irrigation system was installed over where so there's a large aluminum pipe, and then there was a second pipe to the side that it's a smaller one that was uncovered. The irrigation system actually went over where that pipe was, and so there might have been some cinder blocks there. It might have not been obvious that there was a pipe. So
Okay.
whether it was done intentionally or not,
Yeah.
it was covered over and blocked, and
I see.
which resulted in the flooding. Now, secondly, the area that we're talking about here, there's a lot of water back there, correct? You get a lot of water standing back there, especially during when it rains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay on the bed.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
back,
it's
yeah.
very pretty.
Yeah, I love water.
And so the town bylaws require that any activity within a certain area from where that wetland is,
Yeah.
you seek a permit before, you have to file a permit before you can proceed to clear trees and to convert the land to just grass, or to
Okay.
just, to do whatever with it.
Yeah, because we didn't know that that area was like not ours, so that's why we didn't get a
So,
permit.
and that's where
It was unintentional.
you're
But even,
kind of running into second problems, because not only is it wetlands, it's also owned by this commission.
Yeah.
So that's kind of not good also. So it's, that's where your problem is at this point.
Yeah.
咩先？佢講咩先？
佢意思咪即係話嗰 part 地方唔係我哋嗰個數，like 佢而家嗰度塞咗，咁咪整到嗰度個人流水咯。
其實你話嗰個派我真係冇喐過。
因為佢話整嗰個
噴水嗰度
噴水嗰度咧就整佢塞咗咯。
噴水嗰度點會影響嗰度啫？
佢話 no， 佢唔知佢點樣，但總之佢嗰度影響佢嗰度咯，跟住嗰啲 pipe 嗰啲嘢。
唔係個派唔去嗰度啫，
Was her land.
個派唔係嗰度㗎，個派係之前㗎，喺嗰度佢之前啊。
My mom was saying that the irrigation system, like the pipes are like before the that
Yeah.
huge cylinder.
Yeah, so there's, yeah, we're not talking about the large cylinder, we're talking about the smaller one.
The small one.
邊個 small one？
有個細。
Have you walked out there?
因為我睇到啊，佢幾嚿磚咁
啊
There are some bricks.
Yeah,
There are some bricks that
點解
are
會
lined
影
up.
響？
But you can see it's
Yeah,
你點解會
right now it's just my
影響
mom's not sure how
點解會
it would
影響咧？你
affect it.
話
I don't know.
即係個
Right where the pipe is that was uncovered by the Milton DPW, Department of Public Works.
Yeah.
They dug it out, and right where the pipe is now, you can see it, right on top of it is an irrigation hose. It's sitting right on top of it.
哦，有個
It's
pipe。
there now, you can see it today.
哦，佢話咧，你可以
一個頭
有個睇到嘅喺上邊喺個面嘅。
So that pipe
個
jumps
面
right
嗰度會
right
影響
here.
佢嗰個去水嘅咩？
係啊。
噴水啫嘛，佢都
佢哋噴水㗎，唔係呢個。
咁佢哋話影響就影響㗎啦。
It appears to us that when the contractor, I don't know if you put in the irrigation system or the previous owner did, but it appears that when they put the system in,
Yeah.
they ran those black plastic pipes across the drainage pipes, and then they put the soil on top of it, and then planted grass. So the irrigation, it's got like a little spigot that comes up to water the grass, but the pipe itself was encased in soil. And that same soil is what blocked off the drainage pipe.
Okay.
Steve, didn't you have
Do you have a
pictures?
picture?
Yeah.
I thought we did. I
我
thought.
就冇明咁嘅影響嘅嗬，我就冇明真係冇可能嘅。
Because we're unaware of like what they were doing, like the company.
So we'll show you the pictures.
Okay, sure.
And you can see how wet it is.
佢嗰個嚟嗰條喉好深嘅，隔得好遠嘅，隔得好深喎。一般同嗰度都唔搭嘅。
有 pictures.
So where
The pipe is right
right
here,
there,
right there.
and right on
Yeah.
top of it is the irrigation.
Right, and you can see how wet this is
Yep.
as well, heading towards the, that's all standing water, so.
Yep.
Christine, let me show you this.
Thank you.
This is when we were there that day. This is, your house is over here, the pipe is right there.
yeah.
And that's how much water has to come out and go into the stream. And when it was blocked, that's what
Just that
happened. It
one
was
picture
blocked
of it.
and water backed up into your neighbor's house.
That's the irrigation line right
Into
there.
the basement. And you can see basically what's happening.
Oh, did you not see it?
Is,
佢話咪即係塞咗條渠咧，咁你啲水
this
去
is
咗
all wet here as well, because see, this is all what we call it wetland, because it's so wet. This is standing water. So then when you add irrigation, you added more water to water. That already
That's the
comes.
smaller
And
pipe.
there's more.
Okay,
你同
thank
佢
you.
你同佢講，喂，你同佢講，呢個係佢挖咗之後，呢個係爛咗落嚟啫嘛。之前佢係棟起嘅，
係啊，
即係佢你挖爛咗之後先去變咗咁。之前嗰個係
Wait,
面
my parents were saying that. Wait, what did you say?
即係呢個嘢咧唔係呢度㗎，佢挖爛咗㗎，佢哋挖爛咗㗎，你話？
They block
Yeah, it was
挖爛咗，本來係向上
It
嘅
was
呢個，
supposed to go up.
啊塔嗰度嘅，同呢度係唔搭嘅啫，根本嚟好 really far from here，
it's not that, wait,
呢個係佢哋整呢度嗰時係整呢度窿嗰時係整爛
This is a
咗
little
啫嘛。
difficult for the public record because nothing's being recorded.
Right.
Or if it is, it's very difficult to understand what's
So
being said.
can you give us an update of what you're talking about?
yeah. I know.
你搬屋停咗之後先係咁，之前唔係
So
咁嘅。
apparently, that wasn't like that before.
唔係咁嘅之前。
Until I think that hit, 你話佢頭爛咗啊？
唔係啊，之前係喺個地面嗰度噶嘛，佢而家挖開咗咪爛咗落嚟呢度咯，啲水咪噴到落嚟啫。之前唔係咁㗎，你話？佢哋挖
My
開
mom
咗
was
呢度
saying
啊
that
嘛。
that wasn't like that before. Like it was like supposed to go up.
佢呢度之後挖啫
Until
嘛。
they dug it and
你話呢
then
條
it's
呢度
like
係佢
that.
後來挖㗎嘛？呢度挖開咗，之前係冇平地一個，呢
So
同佢講啲係
what
平地
was
嚟㗎。
supposed to go up?
That they want this one.
That is how it works. There's a pipe that goes along underground and then there's like a,
before 係個 land 嚟
It's up
㗎
like that.
，yeah before the land，
yes, but
佢挖咗
this
之後咪
pipe,
變咗啲水嚟咗呢度咯，yeah，即係呢個我哋可以整翻起佢㗎，你話？
so I think what we need to do is
Yeah.
get you to understand that you have to pull that irrigation system back. You have
Yeah.
to take it back and then you can
Okay.
cap it. You can have it in your own yard, but
Yeah, but on the conservation land, we don't want irrigation.
Yeah.
We want the,
yeah,
we want
of
the
course,
natural
yeah,
land.
of course. Because we didn't know that. We thought that area was ours. So
你話
but,
整到邊
yeah,
度啊？如果我
but,
哋要移到去邊度啊？
yeah, we'll definitely have someone, you know,
So,
pull it back.
你有
You
冇
need a
付到
survey
邊度啊？
or
so
something to.
what we're gonna ask for is that you reestablish where the property boundary is. So that's gonna be a survey. And then also, we're gonna want the land somewhat restored to a natural condition as opposed to grass.
Oh,
So-
okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
So you want like the grass to be like dug up?
And we would
you
like,
can put wildflower seeds in there. There are all kinds of seeds. It's not a huge project, but right, it has to go from a manicured lawn back to its natural state. And to assist that process, you can come up with
Sure.
wildflower seeds.
I think step by step. First of all, you need to come back to us with that survey. So you have an idea of where your property line is, and we have a clear idea of where it is relative to the wetland. You saw how wet that is behind you. It's all wet back there. So once you have that idea, then we can talk about what to plant, what to bring back, what irrigation needs to come out. You
And
don't need to
also-
irrigate that land. It's plenty wet back there.
and also how to reestablish the drainage requirements to make sure that the water doesn't back up again and cause the problems for the neighbors.
And they're gonna need to file.
意思咪即係話咧，佢
Yes, I think
佢想
that
知道
was
咪即係而家你
good
佢想
point.
你知道咪即係邊度係你啲忽地咯，so like
I don't
嗰
think
啲
they
地咧
understand
就唔係屬於你，
No, I
你
know.
度 like
拆咗佢。
Therefore,
拆咗
they
係啊。
need some assistance
你有佢講啊，佢而家佢呢度咧，
Yes.
佢呢個氹咧就好高。
Yeah，
咁咧，
咁都係咧
佢整咗條派落咧，佢第時有佢整翻平啲咁多，佢都要冚噶，第時佢都要冚噶，要冚翻落去。因為咧，嗱你我哋後邊嗰度咧，嗰啲 kid 咧成日打波咧，嗰啲波跌咗落我哋呢邊咧，咁佢而家行過嗰度跌親
我知
佢。
我會講個 part，但係佢意思講 like 你呢度咧，你要 fix like 整翻原先嗰度噶嘛。
Yeah.
All right, just so we can keep the meeting orderly,
Yeah.
is there anything you'd like to say for the record?
Yeah. So when you mean survey, like you mean like
A land survey from a registered land surveyor.
oh, so how do I do that?
So you would contact a survey or civil engineering company?
Civil engineering company, you said?
Yes,
Okay.
or a survey company, a land surveyor.
做咩啊？
The town
I
may
would-
have a list, we can't recommend anyone, but the town, and we'll give you a name of a person to call, or Steve, maybe they can call you or Kathy would be better?
Kathy probably.
Kathy
would be better.
Bowen?
Yes.
And we'll give you the telephone number for her, and ask her if there's a list of surveyors in the town that you,
Okay.
or in the nearby area, it doesn't have to be from
To
Milton.
tell us which part is ours.
Right, just
Yes.
to mark it
Okay.
off.
Yeah.
And you're
Okay.
probably going to
Survey,
need
they'll put
some
stakes in the
assistance.
ground so that
Okay.
you see.
Okay.
You're probably going to need some assistance with how to restore the land. And there's something that confuses a lot of people, and that is, even if you own the land,
Yeah.
if you're within a certain distance from we call it a resource area, the wetlands, you still have to ask permission, even if it's on your own land. Because what the state is trying to protect and the town is trying to protect are these resource areas, the wetland areas, because it acts as a purifying, it's like a sponge, but it purifies the water. So we're all trying to protect that. So even if it's on your land, you still have to protect it. So one of the things we know you'll have to do is pull the irrigation system back towards your house.
Yeah.
And there are other components of it, like you shouldn't be using certain fertilizers near the wetlands because it can poison the wetland. But you'd probably need some kind of a wetland scientist or a landscape architect or somebody that does that for business to give you advice.
Okay.
Christine, I think the next step could be for you to come back. This is November. You need to get that survey done before the snow flies so that you can see the land.
Yeah.
But if you could come back in a month, in December,
Yeah.
and with pictures, so we see the stakes,
Yeah.
then you actually have to fill out some forms for us. And there are steps involved that Mr. Ivers can help you with as well.
Okay.
But let's
Yeah.
take it step by step.
Yeah, step-
It seems, at least to me, it seems as though you didn't intend to do any harm. Your parents weren't really sure what they were doing. They made a mistake. It was unfortunate. But let's see if we can take this step by step just to fix the problem, basically.
Now, are there any members of the public or abutters that would like to ask a question or make a comment? Can you come forward and use a microphone, please?
你同佢講，佢啱講乜嘢？幾時有咩？
佢咪即係話請一個人咧講明
Good evening.
邊度係
我哋呢度就整翻㗎嘛。
If you can grab that microphone, actually, it will detach and, thank you very much.
哦，你講嘅。
Yeah, my name is Kevin Darwin, and I live next door to.
The neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm wondering, okay, who's going to be responsible for the damages that is caused in my garage and my basement? Will this be the town of Milton or you guys? I just need to know who's going to pay for all that.
Can I ask a real practical question?
Yes.
Do you have insurance?
Yes, but they are.
Usually, well, if they deny it, then there's a problem. If they pay it, it's really up to them to seek redress, and you're off the hook, so to speak, if they pay it. If they don't pay it, then you've got an issue.
Well, they denied it. They're telling me that it's water from outside. It's not.
The broken pipe inside the house or something of that
Right,
nature.
right. So obviously, I've been living there for almost 15 years, and I never had a flood. Never until all this work was done.
Right.
Right. So.
Well, I understand your concerns. We can't advise you legally what your rights and obligations are. You probably need to consult a lawyer to find out what your remedies are. All right.
But to
That's
answer
not a
your
brush off,
question,
it's just that we don't have the power to
Yeah, we don't
stand
have
in
the
our shoes.
authority to
Right.
say you have to.
系統咧係兩個
Right, your specific question, as the commissioners are saying, we can't compensate, we don't have any of that ability. So
We know the position you're in.
we understand.
你上噴水都得個半個鐘，三個字啫嘛。
冇可能係呢個問
All
題。
right, do you have any other
No, that's
questions
it.
or
I just want to
thoughts?
know who's responsible. You guys responsible for my damages?
佢意思咪即係係咪佢嗰度塞咗，係因為我哋呢度做嘅？
我覺得唔係咯，我覺得 yeah，I think 你同佢講咧，你同佢講咧。
That's really a different issue that's outside of our jurisdiction, and it's probably, if you have counsel, that's probably a good idea to speak through
而家
counsel.
再睇下嗰度啲水係咪去唔到嘅而家？
As part of the repairs, we'll ensure that the drainage is maintained and that it
Yes.
doesn't, to prevent a recurrence of the flooding issue to the best of our ability.
Okay. Well, that's been solved since the.
The town dug it out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll make sure it stays open and clean and,
All right, that's all I needed.
All right, thank you,
Thanks for
Kevin.
coming in.
呢個係之前㗎。
Are there any other members of the public or abutters
同佢
that
講話，我
would
哋
like to be
兩
heard
個
or
都冇
ask a
噴過
question?
水嘅。你問佢，你而家爬去睇下嗰度係咪啲水仲積
Having
住喺度
heard
啦？
that,
我哋冇噴
you
過水嘅。
understand what we're asking you to do?
Yeah, I understand that part, but my parents were saying that right now the irrigation system's been off for like maybe two or three
Two
months now.
Yeah, cold 2
So
months more.
Is that
Yeah.
water flowing this way or that way? Like
Flowing towards, it's flowing away from your house.
away from our
So
away 咯
towards the woods.
towards 向呢邊咯，向返個樹林咯。
而家
Yeah,
而家冇塞到。
yeah, no.
你係嘛？
咁佢點啊？
Christine, do they know there's a great big pond behind them?
Yeah, they do.
That's where it flows into.
It flows
All
towards
that
the
water
pond.
flows
Okay.
towards that pond, yeah.
Can you get those pictures back, because I took those
佢
from
係
the
咪話
file.
整損失需要呢賠錢
係啊係啊
佢話賠錢邊個賠啊？佢驗收賠
Yeah.
啊？
哦，OK
佢驗收唔。Oh yeah, sure.
唔係啊！如果要賠錢，我又唔係咁講㗎，同佢講
Okay,
話
so 你想點樣？
即係意思話咧，你問下佢，而家你哋爬人去睇下嗰條渠嘅話咧，佢係啲水去唔到㗎。你而家啲水仲積晒喺嗰度㗎，你同佢
Yeah,
講
right
條
now
水
my
根
parents
本
are saying
係
that the water's still clogged.
你而家爬去睇下叫佢。
You said you.
Yes, we've had a lot of rain.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, a lot
a lot
of
water over there now.
Yes, we've had a lot of rain, and this time of year, the water is going to be high. That's normal, that's typical. But when you increase the level, the height of the land, the water is displaced. So you have a stream, or you have, right now, there's a stream going there, but where that pipe went out and where the other pipe was going out, when you put earth over that, that water has to go somewhere. And so you push that water, and unfortunately, it ended up in that neighbor's yard.
佢咁啊，佢挖出嚟嗰陣時咧，佢話佢嗰個口嗰度咧，佢已經係直接，因為佢個位高，佢挖咗落
之前係冇事
Do you
嘅。
have a card or, can you just write Kathy's
嗰
name
個頭
down?
咧
and
係
tell- For them?
揼咗落嚟之後
Thank
咧，
you.
可能
Thank you.
開嗰時就
And do you know the date of our next meeting in
之前係冇
December?
問題嘅。咁佢而家冇要我哋賠係嘛？
Christina, we meet on the second Tuesday of the month, the 11th of December.
Okay.
So it would be
December.
very helpful if you could get that survey done, just take some photographs and come back in to see us. But the whole idea, we're not trying to kick this into the future too far. The idea is if you came back to us with a plan as to how to pull the irrigation system back, off of our land, and then how to restore the land that's
The
been
open
with-
flow.
哦，OK，乜佢直。但係你咁講，佢嗰條派咧喺嗰度咧，嗰個口井呢度咧，佢而家挖晒出嚟嗰陣時咧，佢話喺入邊咧，佢啲派好多泥嗰度啦，佢嗰度係冇派新嘅出邊啲水走嘅，冇辦法佢走嘅，嗰度係佢哋冇條派，佢點樣走啊啲水啊？
根本塞晒水度
佢
咧。
佢嗰度係塞咗嚟嘅啫。
你根本水去，你話你哋而家爬人去睇啲水去唔到嗰度，啲水。
就喺嗰度流咗出嘅啫嘛。
你話後邊全部都係啲水，而家都係一個水塘咁樣嘅，啲水根本都去唔到。你同佢講嘛？
Okay, so my parents were saying, like, to add on the comment about the pipe, that thing,
The outlet.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like even before all the time it was already clogged, like way before. So it was because there's no pipe leading.
pipe
It's-
right there.
Yeah.
But, so, yes, but to the point where it wasn't causing flooding on your neighbor's house. So
It was still flowing.
it was still flowing, maybe slowly or not well, but it seems that there was a change from before that to when the flooding happened. Something changed that caused that pipe to stop flowing altogether.
但佢咁樣隔離仲有一條派嘅喎，佢嗰條我哋嗰條派好大條嘅喎。
嗰度有去水嘅，你話梗係咗條咁大條嘅。
Yeah, 佢話塞咗，跟住
冇啊！
佢話
佢條水不嬲都唔塞，而家都唔塞。
嗰條水
佢落
咪落水，
水嗰時我睇啲水流。
即係佢屋企嗰條可能就細派嚟嘅。
Yeah, I saw the lemon pie, the big one on the next hill. They always that the water
full on.
on
The big one's not connected to that.
哦，即係唔係佢嗰
Oh, that's
度嘅，即
separate.
係
It's separate.
Okay.
The big one is for the street
Okay.
drainage.
Yeah, because like the pipes, like I think it's just a little
OK，
confusing, I guess.
你話佢細㗎，佢都冇條派，佢埋住喺入邊，嗰水點樣走啊？冇辦法走嘅啫，你講俾佢聽啦。你講
But also, so we have to establish where that pipe is relative to your property line. So where the conservation property starts, where your property line is, so that, and whether it's in fact also not on your land where this occurred. So, I mean, all of this is going to be dependent on what the survey ultimately says where the property line is.
OK，不過佢點都好咧，佢一定要有一個人咧講俾你聽邊度係你個 part 地，咁跟住先可以證明點樣。
移返去我哋自己嗰度。
佢意思先話佢啲問題，要一個人 like。
Okay.
All
right.
Okay.
Sure.
So you need to know where your property line stops.
Right.
And where the town line begins.
Okay.
Town land begins.
And, okay, that's no problem. And also a concern my parents
Well,
were that, so there's like that hole dug up and it's not like closed, anything like that. So I know that my neighbors, they play basketball and sometimes when the ball gets into my yard, I'm just worried that sometimes like someone or something can like fall into it. So it could be
即係好危
hazardous.
險咯，會啲時候就
Yeah, because there's a
執
huge hole. So I'm just like, yeah, maybe somebody could do something about it.
Well, we'll certainly ask the town, the Department of Public Works, because they're the ones that dug out the hole. And that's a fair concern on your
Yeah.
part.
你話佢嗰條攀嗰度咧，就一定係政府㗎啦，嗰啲地唔係我哋嘅。你話佢嗰條攀喺嗰度通嗰個嗰時候唔係我哋嘅。
去到邊度咧？
Yes. It is reasonable. All right.
都係不力㗎啦。
So if, you probably will have additional questions, but you can direct those to Kathy Bowen at the telephone number.
Or Steve.
That, or Steve, yeah.
Myself, let me put mine.
Sure. 佢話如果你有咩問題，可以 call 佢。
哦，OK。
And so we will see you on December 11th? 11th.
What, same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let me write that down.
Christina, we thank you very much.
All right, thank you so
And-
much.
And
Thank you.
both of you as well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
OK，thank you。
Certainly.
你多謝晒。
Thank you.
Thanks.
Night now.
Next on the agenda is enforcement order at 1421 Canton Avenue. Steve, have you heard anything from?
Yes, I spoke to Mr. Holmes of ERC LLC. He said that he was retained by the applicant or the homeowner. He went to the site, created a report, presented some recommendations to the homeowner, and has not heard back yet.
Do you know how long ago he presented his report?
Yes, I talked with him just after our meeting, so it would have been it would have been before our meeting, our last meeting.
The last site walk or public meeting?
Last public meeting
I'm sorry.
in October.
Well, I think we actually voted in our September meeting to impose the fine, which could be remitted if we were pleased with the remediation effort. But at this stage, I think we need to send another notice reminding them, A, they have to respond, particularly having received a report from Brad Holmes. And in addition, to remind them that the
Clock is still.
the fine is accumulating. And that enforcement order has been recorded, has it not? Do you know, Steve?
Sorry, I do not know.
Could you ask Kathy to make sure that it is recorded? Because that goes with the land. And then another invitation, perhaps, to our meeting on December 11th?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
All right, next on the agenda is request for a certificate of compliance, 333 Hillside Street. Do we have anybody from Hillside Street? Not that one. Which, 333, that's the driveway, or is that 339?
No, that's the driveway. And
333 is the driveway?
That's correct.
Okay.
And what we're missing there, they were supposed to treat the knotweed and then also create a wetland depressed area next to a small wetland.
That's the replication area.
Replication area, yeah, they planted it, but they planted it in the upland. No kidding. This goes back a year now. We've been dealing with this for over a year.
Right.
Okay, so.
Who did the planting, Steve? Do we know?
It was actually, I don't know who did the plantings. I think it may have been a contractor. It was certainly not supervised by a wetland scientist.
Okay. Do we have an enforcement order on that? It's here for a certificate of compliance.
We do not have an enforcement order.
We didn't when they put the driveway through the wetland?
That's before my time, I think.
We did not.
All right, well, why don't you invite them in? I think, isn't this Jim Burke?
Yes, it is.
If you could invite them back and suggest that if we don't see some response activity, then we'll issue an enforcement order. All right? And then invite them to the December 11th meeting as well. Next on the agenda is informational. It's 593 Blue Hill Avenue.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Steve, do you happen to have the, can we use that plugin at all?
Let's see.
Hope so, otherwise I'm just going to be describing this.
There. On the green, end of the green wire. Hang on a second. Let's trace it. Hang on, we're gonna trace it. I just don't see the end. Is this connected to that? Is the question? Hang on, is this going up? Yeah, see, I'm tracing here. This is one connection. Goes to the phone. That's the power cord. Hang on a sec, this is it right here.
Oh, that's it, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Certainly. It's a tangle of wires, or what a tangle web we
When first we practice to deceive.
Exactly.
Is this the one you're signing on here?
I haven't seen the form before. Nobody would guess.
And could I bother to have you hit the power button in there? Jeez, so demanding.
Came on.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
That's the signage.
Thank you.
Hey,
This is a Sony sign.
at the beginning, that's right then. That's right then.
Now, there's a source button over there on the wall. I'm not sure if it needs to be pushed as well or not.
Oh, which one? There we go.
Great. Great. Excellent.
Are we all set? Do we need to wait for...
Yeah, if you could stall a moment, thanks.
First, just thank you for putting time on the agenda for seeing me.
Steve, while we were waiting, do we have a number of items on additional business?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Would you like to hear a couple?
No, if there are some here, because I'm going to recuse myself on number 8. And I didn't know if that would be the end of it.
Okay,
We're all set, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Good evening, my name is Jeff Kane, LAL Engineering Group. I'm representing Alex Montaneau, owner of 593 Blue Hill Ave. I had a question. We're preparing an abbreviated notice of intent to submit to you folks, hopefully in time for your December meeting. And it came to our attention as we were doing this, and I'm pretty sure you folks have a better idea, or at least a longer history with this site than I do. But my understanding being brought on the 11th hour was Alex, when he purchased this site, did not realize there had been an agreement with the previous owner of that site and the owner of 593 and 591, who Alex purchased the site from, had an agreement with 26 Voss Hill Road, the Browns, and 600 Brush Hill Road, the Haggertys. There was several items in that agreement that they came up with during the permitting time to allow them to back the project going forward. A few of those items had to do with screening and fencing along the property lines, maintaining trees along this buffer here. But there was one item that requires permitting with you folks, and that is in regards to a gravel driveway that runs between the Haggerty's lot here at 600 Brush Hill Road, starts right here at that property line, and it runs up along the Adams property into the paved area that ties into Brush Hill Road.
Would you show that again, just so I
Sure.
can see it?
This is the edge of the Haggerty's property here. Can you see where I'm pointing here?
Yes.
And that's where the gravel road starts. It comes up here to that little cul-de-sac area, and that's when it becomes paving again. All this property is on the Adams property, obviously. The Haggertys do have an access easement that also has language in there about installing utilities. So, that said, there's an agreement that was put in place with the previous owner, Paul Sullivan, that is on file at the Building Commission, that states before a building permit can be issued, there has to be several items that are taken care of as part of this agreement. One of those items is the addition of a trench drain in this gravel driveway. Since this house was built, the Haggertys have complained that water has come down this driveway and eroded away the gravel driveway.
I'm sorry, Jeff, since which house was built?
My understanding is now, John, this is just from what I'm told, 610 Brush Hill Road.
Okay.
Since that was built, some issues are with water running down this
I
driveway.
think the pool as well.
Yeah, and that didn't help.
Yeah, the house and the pool.
And I've just seen it with the recent rains. I've seen the same thing happen. I'm sure you folks have already seen it too. But we're not here to talk about the project really. What our question is, the agreement that was put in place was a little bit loose. It just states, and I have a copy of it here if you folks want to see it. It just states that there would be a trench drain placed in the gravel driveway lower down than the existing trench drain that exists up at the top here today. And this water would be taken onto Alex's site, onto one of these lots and routed around and infiltrated as much as possible, things like that.
You just took a detour for me. I was with you right up until that
Okay,
point.
say it again.
We've done a lot of work here at this house, because there's a pool in back
Right.
here.
Yes.
And this is all open conservation.
Yes, I saw the order for that house.
And I've heard about the trench drain, but I didn't know it was going to divert into 593.
Yes, and that's in the agreement. Again, I have some copies if you want to read it.
I'd love to read it, because I've never heard of it.
What agreement is that?
This is just between the previous owner, Paul Sullivan, and the neighbors. And this was unfortunately, or depending on what you look at, filed with the building
Does
commission.
not run with the land?
It does. Again, not being a lawyer, I'm not sure how far this can go. It's just an agreement at the building department. But right now, they will not release the building permit until he checks these boxes, so to speak. In that the second page, you'll see I highlighted where it was mentioned.
So is it falling onto both of these owners, 591 and 593, or only 593?
We tried as much as possible, just, it's going to be on both of these. What happens is, and let me show you what actually,
Are they going to pay for the?
Alex is going to do the work. And
Okay.
that's part of the agreement, that he has to do this work before the building permit is issued.
No, I mean the neighbors that are dropping the water onto his property. Are they going to?
No, Alex is,
They're not providing any money for that.
no, Alex has to pay for that, take it onto their property as much as possible, and that's the agreement, so.
And I'm sorry to ask, but where are the resource areas?
So here, this is where we are right now. Okay, here's here's Blue Hill Ave here.
Yeah.
Here's the gravel driveway. And you can see right here, well, you can't even see the cul-de-sac up here, but it's up there. Here's the resource area you're talking that's behind 610 Brush Hill Road, John?
Yes.
Okay. That red line is the 25-foot no disturb. The yellow line is the 100-foot. Okay. What we're proposing to do is add a trench drain right at this point here. There's an existing one further up. You can see I have it shown there lightly. Can you see that?
So that's not on his property?
That's not on his property.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a trench drain that we asked them to put in when they, at 610, when they put in the swimming pool.
Okay, so that's there.
So that owner has to file a notice of intent?
The owner for that, this is...
Owner of the land?
Well, that's the question. Well, we took, and again, it goes back to the fact that, I mean, if you look at the state doesn't require a separate NOI for different ownerships. That's why we're coming to you to ask that question. We have an access easement for that land, for the driveway, from the Haggertys. I spoke to Amy Adams on the phone. I got verbal agreement that she's okay with that work being done, and we would have written agreement before we move forward. But the issue is, Alex, who my client is, we'd be filing the notice of intent for 593. Part of that work would happen on 610 Brush Hill Road.
But if the drain is, because when we permitted this house, we included a berm right along the property line.
Right.
So how are you going to get a trench drain to put it onto his property?
There is an existing, you see right here, that little dashed line, there's an existing swale that runs along this driveway right now.
Yes, there is.
And it just spills over into here, and it just kind of meanders and does whatever it wants over here. Our idea is to take this swale that exists today, improve it slightly. We're looking at small amounts. Right now, it's probably about 8 to maybe 2 feet wide as it meanders along that driveway. We'd just like to do this, grass it, improve that swale, put in a small inlet right here, grab that water so it's not just running uncontrolled over here and over this driveway. We're going to pipe it onto this lot. We've already done test pits on this lot to know the infiltration. And we're going to put the grading, you don't see the grading on here yet, but we're just going to let this meander down, kind of cascade. We're going to put in low points along these, along this length of the lawn, so to speak. It's all going to be done with turf, very gradual, and we've actually got an area down here too. So this water is just going to meander down here, infiltrate as it goes, come down to another area down here, infiltrate as well. There'll be a large level spreader here for anything that doesn't make it now. So it just controls it more as far as getting it down there.
How much are you handcuffing yourself in terms of a design for the actual lot?
No, the house, as you can see, that footprint, that house is there today.
Oh, it is?
We have it on there, we even showed, because the owner's concerned, oh, they may want a pool someday. We actually have a proposed pool on here as well. This grading, this is a very large lot, and the infiltration rates here, we took the test pits, is actually pretty decent. So we've got a lot of room to grade, a lot of space down here, and we think we can just let this, again, gentle, very, very gradual grading, get the water down here. Now this is all outside your jurisdiction, but we do have this small inlet right here that we'd like to take, kind of control this flow, and obviously the improvement of this swale is in your jurisdiction, and this trench drain itself would be in your jurisdiction. Now the trench drain is going to be this, it's going to be a buried structure. The one we have up here, you can see that if you've been up there, it fills fairly quickly with silt.
So which property would the order of conditions be attached to?
So the real question is, I didn't want to bring too much to, bring the project to you, but we have to file a notice of intent for 593. As part of that, we're going to have work done on 610 Brush Hill Road. We want to make sure the commission's okay with doing that work, assuming we're going to have those permissions, be it through easement and a written agreement from the property owner themselves that the work can happen.
Yeah, as long as you've got formal authorization to do the work.
And formal would be, the property owner giving us written permission would be okay with that.
Yes, and they also must sign the notice of intent.
Yes, as the property owner.
Property
exactly.
owner.
Right.
Anybody can be an applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm hung up on something because I've had a discussion within the last 4 or 5 months about the town wanting to put in 2 catch basins down here. And the discussion was, because we know there's a lot of water running down here.
Right.
And the DPW was concerned that it's going out onto Blue Hill Avenue, and it could freeze there and create a hazard. So they were going to put in 2 catch basins. Is that still on the table?
Last I walked this site with Bill Clark, and that was a couple months ago as well, there is no drainage system in this roadway until you get way, way down this road. And my understanding is there's a large electrical duct bank that runs right along this side of the road that may make that difficult as well. I heard nothing, and I will double check with DPW and Bill Clark again, because I would love to have a catch basin there. I don't want to put that water over there. But my understanding is that wasn't an option.
Wow.
So I'll bring it up with them again. I mean, that would be a great fix.
Because timing-wise, I probably had the same a series of conversations longer ago than 2 months. And at the time, I thought that there was a drainage pipe to discharge into along Blue Hill Avenue. If there's no drainage pipe there, I'd be shocked, number one.
There's no catch basins there.
I know there's no catch basin.
Catch basin is further down the hill. You can see it.
Right, but is it tying into some kind of a drainage pipe running this way?
No.
Because I know there's no catch basin, but that's what they wanted to put
The
in.
drainage pipe, the next one is actually at the top of this hill, further up here, right at the intersection of Boss Hill. There's another drainage system that goes the other way.
Right.
Goes the other way.
Goes the other way. So when I was out there with Bill, we were walking, and it's like, that one goes that way. The next one is down, way down that hill.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
So,
And that would be cost prohibitive to
yeah.
connect.
And again, with that electrical duct that we've heard about, if it's there, it may even be very difficult to provide some type of gravity connection anyway. It's like a large MBTA or something like that. So, anyway, not to get too far ahead, that's just what we had wanted to make sure that we didn't come in and, as we're trying to go through this process, say, well, we're going to require you to file a separate NOI for 610 to go along with this, so. As speaking with Kathy, she said, well, there's been some projects that we've had some issues with. I think you should go in and talk to the commission about this. So that's what brings me.
Yeah, and we appreciate that, but I think we can work through this one. But I agree with you, Steve, that as long as the homeowner or the landowner signs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Clearly identify which properties are affected.
Exactly. Do a good plan.
You're looking at
it. Use color on the plan.
There's color on it?
Yes. It's very helpful, really.
All right. All right, that was it. Appreciate your time.
Oh, good. Thanks, Jeff.
Good job.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Next on the agenda is conservation restriction 175 Governor Stoughton Lane, for which I will recuse myself. Are these copies we get a bunch of these copies, the Paul Sullivan letter?
Can we make copies for everybody?
Yeah,
okay.
those are you folks, just in case you didn't have that.
Thank you.
Are those all the same, or are they different?
They're all the same.
They're all the same, okay.
And they're on files too, I think.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I thought they were different ones, so I didn't want to...
Thank you.
Yeah, we got copies of this conservation restriction agreement, and because one of the issues is about public access.
Sure.
And it's not clear what the agreement is regarding public access. I actually talked to... That's okay. I talked to Katie Conlon, one of our selectmen, earlier today, because, of course, the trustees of Town Farm, in their sale of the property, within that agreement, there is something describing the extent of public access. So let me just read to you. Actually, I wrote her a letter, and I still will put it on public record. I said at the Concon meeting tonight, the Town Farm Pulte development is on the agenda, specifically the conservation restriction proposal. Because the property and the cluster development agreement was originally between the town selectmen as trustees of Town Farm and the purchasers, the particular issue of public access is addressed in that agreement someplace. I don't believe it's within our authority to decide the type and extent of public access, but rather to see that the understanding and agreement of the selectmen is adhered to and comports with our Conservation Commission mandates. So I think what we need to do first of all, is have the selectmen review this, and Katie Conlon agreed with me. And I think she was going to ask Bill Clark in particular she wasn't one of the selectmen, in fact, who was involved in hammering out that agreement, even though it took a long time. So first, I think what we need to do is get a copy of that original agreement to see the extent of public access, what type of public access. And then I would propose putting this on for December, when we have a chance as well to look that over, and also let the selectmen probably turn to the planning board and see what they had as the next step. I think there was also some requirements that they put on.
Judith, can you just help me put this in the context of our responsibility?
Yes.
As the Conservation Commission?
Specifically, within this conservation restriction that we're being asked to okay, and I assume they'll come in and address it as well, but just looking it over, it does have it has some specific public access. And I looked at this the other day and I went, I don't know what it should be for public access. So it should be the selectmen should look it over again, now the new 5 board.
But it's their agreement.
It's their agreement with Pulte. It's not, up to us.
That's the demarcation I was
Yeah. And then I think subsequently the planning board put some other restrictions or specific
There are some things we might be
requirements.
concerned about,
Yeah.
about the vegetation and stuff. This was the one where the guy was telling me, yeah, those rare orchids, they're everywhere in my,
Yes, right.
you know.
Right.
So in terms of Cypripedium maculae,
Yes.
Yes.
and I think they're assuring us, hey, no problem, no worries if we rip them out, we'll just plant them back.
Well,
They
do not
assured us
take-
that that can't be
they're
done.
dead.
You
Right.
can't
They're
plant
dead.
that.
And do it.
Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
So part of it, and I don't think we ever got this, was showing where they are. And secondly,
I've seen areas around there
yeah,
where are
I-
flagged,
Yeah,
That
we had it on the
are-
map from them too.
that are shown where
In
they've
general
been-
terms, yes, yeah.
But I have
he
seen
was
them.
pretty.
We know where they are. Yeah.
I've seen them there,
Because he was pretty
Yeah.
flip about it, and there's no question, they disturb the land or take them out, that's it,
Yeah.
party over.
Well, then that also
Simply
relates
no
to the
design.
issue,
Forever.
Yeah.
yeah,
Very delicate balance.
that also relates to the
They
issue.
were error to begin with.
Yes, right. Relating to the issue of public access. If people know they're there, how do we restrict some
For us to
tampering
be able
or,
to
yeah,
check out
Right,
the
right.
situation.
So I think there's also some overlap in terms of the historic structures that were preserved.
yes, but that's not part of the Pulte development. That's,
Town retained that land.
right.
Okay, so there's no
Those
public
portions.
access associated with where that was.
Well, we can't say no to that. Anybody,
No, I mean, like, so, and that's where I'm wondering if there's, where this public access language is in the CR. if there's
Yeah,
any-
I'd like to see that too. And I think also there was some understanding of, well, the homeowners association, that would be public access. But where it's right next to the Blue Hills, and we know everyone's using the Blue Hills for hiking and more,
come in
Why
and see the
not?
beautiful houses.
exactly, in that beautiful hill that you can
Right.
walk up and, see for about 10 miles.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so let's put this, I would suggest put it on for December, and that gives the selectmen a chance to look at this, make sure that they all understand what's happening here. And also, Bill Clark was going to get in touch with the planning board to see if there's other requirements. So let's put this on for December, yeah. Because the public access with the plants and just for recreation, or do some members of the public have access, or does everyone? Is it homeowners?
So
or
also animals
what?
rooting in there.
Bizarre language.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
right.
wild native, theirs, but people's dogs and things.
Right, exactly. Okay, so I would suggest we'll move it over to December, then monitor the next steps that are involved.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Be interesting to find out if it's supposed to be a leash law townwide.
Yeah, right. I'll send a copy of that letter to all of us here, so that just so you have it as well.
Next is additional business. What do we have for additional business?
Yes. The first request from actually Kathy was to review the conditions for 123 Granite Ave before she issued it, because we were both a little bit unclear and wanted to make sure that we got everything in there. And I would like to read those conditions, if I might.
Sure.
To you. Number 43 was earth berm shall be installed. 44, wattles will not be allowed. Hay bales or mulch sock with a silt fence to be dug shall be installed for erosion/sedimentation control. 45, any area disturbed shall be reseeded. 46, conservation resource area dash no dumping signage shall be installed informing the public of the sensitivity of the resource areas. 47, trash and debris with sufficient regularity shall be removed from resource areas. 48, trailer to be placed outside 100-foot buffer zone. That's the existing trailer, I think, that's there. And number 49, applicant to inform all contractor overnight storage or refueling of construction vehicles or hydraulic equipment is prohibited within 100 feet of wetland resource areas. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I thought so. That's why.
Yeah, I thought I wrote on this, and I possibly was thinking to myself, I apologize if I
that's
didn't
fine.
get it forward.
It's fine.
On the signage, it should be throughout their entire perimeter, because it is a disaster zone to the far right as it is to the left.
That would be to the north.
Yes.
Yes. Is that every 100 feet or so?
Something of that nature. And that protects them too, because we don't know if people come in there, park, abuse the privilege, and it's in their interest to have us protect them, as well as what their responsibilities are. And the second is debris, and how do we define that? Maybe you can read any debris in maybe parenthesis, trash, stone,
Soil, sand.
soil, macadam,
Construction debris.
construction materials.
Construction and demolition, right?
That'd be a nice way to
C
avoid
and D
it.
materials.
And Steve, do we have an understanding that that type of material that is already over their property line into the wetland is going to be taken out?
I think, I would strongly suggest you put it right into the conditions.
Okay.
Okay. All materials.
To include any existing.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, on the earth berm, we get two issues. One is, for what length of the parking lot are we talking about for the earth berm? And the second one is at the northern end. I thought we had talked about putting in like a permanent.
Some sort of plan.
Right. They were going to come back with, a proposal to put in like a macadam berm, the whole length of the parking lot, but particularly in the northern end. Do you recall that, Steve?
Yes, I do.
And we haven't received anything. So why don't we just put that in?
I'll put it in. It's there.
Okay.
How's that?
That's good. So, but the question pertains as to how far should the earth berm go?
Okay.
Because if we start at the south end, where the whatever it's called, the concrete slab is, where the
Yes.
picnic place was. If we start there and take that up until sort of if you draw a straight line from the side of the building back towards the expressway, towards the back of the part, that might be sufficient for that, because I'm envisioning, a substantial earthen berm.
They were going to provide some kind of supporting engineering design.
Yeah.
So they need to provide a plan showing location.
Of the earth berm and then the
And height.
continuation of the macadam berm.
Exactly, and then transition to macadam, right?
Yes.
Good,
Good enough.
thank you.
All right.
That's number one. Let's see, number two is, we had a request from Mr. Hannigan regarding 1383 Brush Hill Road. There was an ORAD that was issued on the 5th of August, 2015. He wanted to know whether it was still valid or not.
What is it? An ORAD?
An ORAD, yes.
What's an ORAD?
Order of Resource Area Delineation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry. Just,
Yeah.
if you're in the business. In any case, he wanted to know whether it was still valid. I emailed him tonight as soon as I found the question here from Kathy, and I said, no, I'm sorry, the ORAD is not valid.
What year
And he-
was it from?
What's that?
What year?
15.
Yeah.
2015, August.
Yeah, so he missed.
I said he's a few months too late, and he responded already, so that's all taken care of, just FYI. You signed the Concom budget. Number D, 437 Hillside, you wanted me to go out there and take a look at it. You should have the chance to look at an incredibly well-done forest cutting. I have never seen anything so well done. Evidently, they spent months on it.
Where is it? What's the address?
437 Hillside. And there is a DCR pathway along the westerly boundary of a portion of that property that goes then down onto the property, and it goes to Pine Tree Pond. They did a wonderful job with the cutting. It's amazing how well they did. I have never.
Pine Tree Pond. Is that the pond?
You
in
mean
back
Hillside
there?
Pond?
Well, yes, they call it Hillside Pond, yes.
On Hillside.
Hillside Pond, yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to report that that cutting was done superbly.
Great.
No slash above a couple of inches, never mind, 6-foot slashes I was dealing with in Holland, Mass. 2 weeks ago.
Continue, please.
Yes, number E, or alphabet E, we have not talked about the replacement tree and shrub guidelines. So that was supposed to be our homework. May I suggest we carry it over to December?
I will do some revisions to that. and
Okay, I'll look at it
Wonderful.
again. Sounds
Okay,
good.
carry it to,
In terms of the work that you'd mentioned on
Hillside?
On Hillside, is there any land that is under our control which would benefit equally from a similar?
Well, possibly, and that's the Pope's Pond area and Turner's Pond area, which we have a small grant for.
Turner's Pond, for sure.
Yes, so we're in the process of getting a quote, at least for Turner's Pond, I'm sorry, for Pope's Pond, from a forester.
Okay.
Okay, so we're working through that.
And so while you bring up Turner's, I was also, I recently participated in my daughter's outdoor classroom over at Glover School. One of the, there was a mention of a Girl Scout troop in the area that is very willing to do some work around Turner's if it's needed. So I don't know if there's any, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Good for them, good for us.
They're approaching high school age, so they can,
Excellent.
hopefully put their phones down.
Even if it's not at Turner's Pond, right adjoining Turner's Pond is that section of Pine Tree Brook often gets clogged up with debris. And we haven't had that cleaned out in about, what, 5 years?
Big does the area have to be?
So that is.
I don't know about sending a bunch of girls down there
Cutting?
to, young girls to
10 acres.
clean up the
Yeah,
brook,
5
but
acres.
maybe we can get some trash and material, but yeah, maybe we can direct that.
Yeah.
It's just,
I think 10 acres might be a limit.
Sure.
Yeah, and I don't mean, big, heavy logs and stuff. I'm talking
Okay.
about, plastic bags and
Oh, okay, perfect.
cans and
Yeah.
plastic bottles, things like
Okay.
that.
I picture jumping in the brook. Kidding.
They probably would like that.
Sure. I will, email them.
I have the tree bank question on the list. As something to, follow up. And we will remind you again that MACC is having a workshop on buffer zone mitigation in Easton on December 1st.
It's filled.
Oh, is it filled?
Last week I tried to get into it.
Oh, that's
Okay.
that's because I got into it.
Wow.
You got the last seat.
And I will share, I'm already signed
You're
up.
going? Good.
Yeah. That's all I have. Oh, I just have a question for you, Mr. Chairman. Was there any follow-up as to possible new members?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm struggling with her name. Help me with her name.
Wendy Garpo?
Yes, Wendy Garpo. I called Mike Dennehy as soon as we spoke, and just for your benefit, Hans, you ran into her somewhere or met her somewhere, right?
Yes, at the outdoor classroom that I was talking about.
All right, and she's very active, or has been active over her, last 10 or 15 years. Part of her career as being something to do with the
and
Quonset
South.
River, but it's also the one in Norwell.
Yes, North and South. I was executive director.
All right.
She was working.
And she worked there, okay.
Yes.
So, I mean, she's an environmentalist.
Great.
And lives in Milton and is anxious and willing to join us. And she does have an expertise.
Yes.
They called Mike Dennehy, and Mike and I had spoken, 2 months ago about a fellow that he knows, and I know as well, who's an attorney, and he's interested and has offered. We have 2 open positions. So I called him and suggested Wendy, and we'd already talked about Terry Burke. So he being Mike, said that he'd present that to the selectmen this week.
Great.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you.
because we have 2 openings.
Oh, Paul.
That's good.
Full commission.
Yeah. that's
Good.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
good news.
Excellent.
Wendy knows stormwater very well, so that would be a welcome
That's an
addition.
expertise we need.
Yeah.
Exactly. Welcome addition.
Absolutely.
Is that it?
My side.
That's it for me.
For me, too.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? All right, good.
Good.
We're done.
You too.
I'm flying out to LA tomorrow morning.
Oh,